XR is a new set of technologies and we often associate it with virtual reality. These are glasses that people put on to actually see virtual environments. XR covers a wide range of new technologies that can be used to create extended realities. That's where the name comes from. There is different types of glasses, for example, augmented reality glasses. And in our case, we're interested to see how we can use XR technologies in sports.
So extended reality can be used for a variety of different sport contexts. We obviously have individual sports like archery, where we can simulate the situation for a single athlete, but we can also use that in a more team sport settings. And I think the future benefit of that will be having remote access to these virtual environments. So if you think about professional cycling teams, then we can train with VR together in remote places. We can simulate the peloton strategies and how that would be done remotely, so that we don't have to have a training camp and come all together from different places. We can do that from a distance. So here we have opportunities to train then from different places with multiple athletes at the same time and simulating strategies that you can now have more tactical training from a distance.
In team sports like volleyball, there is more opportunities because there are several players involved at the same time. For example, to create multi-person extended reality environments where several people can experience a situation together and also have the opportunity to then afterwards reanalyze what was happened, either using data that was taken or measured during their trial in the virtual environment, or then just by communicating it afterwards between themselves. And if needed, with extended reality, the users have always the chance to revisit the situation, go through the same situation again and build up a routine that helps them. In the case of this project, we initially looked at 3 different sports. This is archery, BMX, and volleyball. In archery, we are looking at ways that we can simulate their performance environment inside a virtual environment so that athletes can perform the tasks that they naturally do when they perform in competition in a similar way in a virtual environment. On top of that, with XR, we have the chance of manipulating the environment. So in our case, to induce stress for the athletes, to add another layer where we can actually improve training or create an environment that helps the athletes to perform better. In the future, there is a great chance that new technologies will be used more frequently. This is something where the match between what is the sport actually wanting or accepting to use and what is technologically possible. Many of the top sports, they perform in a very specific performance environment. Thus far, most of the time virtual reality has been used to simulate these environments. I believe that with new technologies such as augmented reality, we have the chance of taking the technology directly to the field or to the performance environment where the athletes naturally train, to make it easier for them to adapt new technologies.
If we're thinking about performing under pressure, performing in stressful situations, I think in the future we will be able to simulate your physiological responses in the virtual environment. For instance, by wearing a heart rate belt, we can then display your actual heart rate in the virtual environment so that you can see how your physical responses differ depending on the environment that you're in. And then you can use that to learn, okay, how can I adjust that? How can I perform in these different settings better than I can now? So I think in the future it's a more integrated and immersive way of dealing with pressure situation, dealing with unexpected situations that we can simulate in a virtual environment.
This is a time right now where we are trying to learn where or which technology is usable. And it will turn out that maybe some of these technologies are really usable for sports, whereas others are not. And it's our task to figure out in this process where we want to go. I see a great opportunity that in the future these technologies can be directly applied into professional sports and thus help the development of professional athletes. And if you look at the greater range, it's all about actually developing people and bringing them to an expertise level that they didn't have yet. And I myself believe that XR technologies can be used to achieve that goal faster.
In a training environment, we always generally already try to simulate stressful situations. However, as any athlete knows, when they go into a competition environment, you feel physiological arousal. You feel your heartbeat quickening, your breathing rate is quickening. And now you have to perform these motor skills that are really difficult to perform in the first place under these stressors that you feel physically. And also then mentally, you think differently about, okay, I have to perform. How do I do that best? So there's many different factors that are different in a competition environment than in a training environment. But now with VR, with other extended reality options, we can simulate an environment that represents the competition environment much more closely. And we can then use this technology to get our athletes more familiar with these feelings that they're feeling physiologically. So we have an opportunity for them to familiarize themselves with their own stress responses in their body and how they can then perform different skills within that environment as well. Extended reality has different opportunities to actually make societal impact and create safer societies. We've been working on a project with police forces all across Europe. There we're using virtual reality to improve decision making and acting under pressure and in high-risk situations. For instance, we can simulate mass casualties in VR that we can't really simulate or train in real life because that is requiring a lot of space and a lot of different actors, children or elderly that would be around, and we can't simulate it in real life. So in VR we can simulate that and we can get our police officers to be familiar and train under conditions that are much more like real life. And now, if they ever have to encounter a situation that is of high risk, they will be better prepared to deal with the stress, to deal with the unexpected situations because they have experience with that in their training from virtual reality. I think with virtual reality and other augmented reality systems, we will probably be able to simulate different surgical procedures much more closely. So we can train them in a safe environment, training very specific motor skills that are hard to be simulated also in real life. We can now do that in VR, and then our medical procedures will probably get better and better the more closely we can resemble this real life situation with technical solutions. We've been using XR or virtual reality for stress reduction. So we can use virtual reality as a biofeedback mode. So if you feel very stressed, we can use VR to create a calming environment. We can use breathing techniques to regulate ourselves a little bit better. And in that sense, virtual reality also has very great applications just for the general public. Yeah. We can simulate realistic training environments, realistic competition environments, and within these we have now the chance to make mistakes, to learn from them, without having the stakes of failing at the big stage where you actually don't want to fail, right? If we can train that in VR, in XR, whatever it is that we want to use for this, we have a safe environment where athletes can develop themselves. There's been various applications modes for that, by exploring different ways of trying out new things. Obviously we can do that in real life training as well, but now we can do that in a simulated competition environment. And that allows for various strategies to just be tried out. If we were to look at a golf putt, we could do that. We could simulate a competition in virtual reality of a high pressure golf putt. We could simulate, for instance, also a competitor in VR that scores ahead of them, and now they have to do a different shot to actually get and reach them. So there's different ways of how we can simulate that and train that, and then we have the athlete figure out different ways on how to approach this problem.